Welcome to Expat Hoops, where we talk to basketball players who have played their pro careers outside of the U.S. Today, we talk with former University of Dayton player Devin Oliver, who has played all across Europe and is currently in Japan.
But before we get into it with Devin, I wanted to remind you that we have new permanent home, our website, expathoops.com. For our audio podcast, you can find us on outlets like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Tell your friends. But now let's get into it with our guest today as he joins us today from Sendai. Welcome to the pod, Devin.
What's going on, gentlemen? Happy to be here. Excited.
Happy to have you.
So let's talk college first. Expat Hoops Online has a pretty good relationship with a lot of A10 accounts, one of which are people that are from the University of Dayton, a couple of people that also run the A10 Talk blog. One of the guys is a University of Dayton alum. So you played there from 2010 to 2014. Tell us about your time at Dayton and tell us about how that set you up for your pro career.
Yeah, my time at Dayton, man, was just unbelievably special. It's a small, I'm sure as you guys know, it's a smaller campus, private Catholic school. So just that experience of kind of coming in as a skinny freshman and not leaving quite as a man, but, progressing along well. I've met a lot of friends that are still friends to this day. Just having the opportunity to play in front of those fans every night was just something very special. And obviously going to the Elite Eight my senior year was a big part of why I was able to transition into a professional career overseas. Very thankful for that last year. Got to do a special thing, first and foremost for the university, but kind of set me up and put me in position to jump into that next part of my career.
And when you jumped from that part of your career from Dayton, first of all, when did you have aspirations to go pro when you were in college? And secondly, what was that process like? Dayton's a pretty good basketball school. You went to the Elite Eight, as you said, you made some headlines, you got some attention, but it is a mid-major school. So a high mid, as we like to refer to it. So, it's not one of the biggest heavy hitters of the world. So what was that like going into that process, coming from a school like that got you the attention, but wasn't in the upper echelon of schools that you could have gone from?
Yeah, it's funny because you asked when did I really start thinking about playing professionally, and I don't know. I really don't remember. It might not have been until my senior year. I mean, it was always in the back of my mind, but it was never really like, I know for sure I'm going to go. And then because we had a couple of rough years, I think my junior year was a really rough year. I think we went 19 and 13 or something, 17 and 13, something like that. And I was like, man, I don't know. And I even thought about transferring at one point, but I came back and we did so well our senior year. And I think for most of that year, I remember seeing a statistic on the screen. I was one of 5 players in the country to lead their team in all the major categories. And Jordan Cyber ended up beating me in points per game in one of the final games. I was pissed about it. No. But, and I was a Swiss Army knife for that team. And then I was really like, wow, I felt more like a leader. I was like, wow, I think I can do this at the next level. I'm a good player. For me, it's always been about confidence. I've always had the tools and the skills. It's always been about, knowing myself that I can get it done. And we just did well, man. I think a lot of it, I have to give credit to our fan base. They really propelled us forward. I remember seeing the revenue we had generated, media, everything combined, it was up to like over 70 million or something like that. And then my little sister, I mean, these kind of things, from what I've learned about life overseas, is they also care about who you are as a person, and most of the time they do their due diligence. And I think they saw a little bit of everything, and it just allowed me to take that next step.
Referred to Dayton as a high mid, and of course, but they have a lot of money that support their basketball program there as well. And especially, I don't know if you call it starting in your era, but I do feel like a lot of players, from like the mid aughts up until this period, that's when the transition really started to happen. And it seemed like there were a lot of players that weren't necessarily going to the blue chip schools that were supporting schools that weren't, in your ACCs and SEC schools that would allow you to do things like go to the Elite Eight from Dayton and Mason with their Final Four and VCU and all that over that course of time. So that's always interesting to see how people fare in their schools through that period.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more normal now. I remember I went to Dayton on a visit, and right before that visit, I went to Butler, and Brad Stevens offered me a scholarship, and I was
Another
like,
example.
"Nah, I'm good."
Yeah.
And then two national championships later.
Yeah.
But I went.
I
To
think
Dayton,
you did
and I
fine
was
for
like,
yourself, though.
yeah, it was great. I would never take it back. I would never take it back. But I got to the gym for the first time, and I was like, I know it's a mid school. And then you go walk into the arena on game. I'm like, are you serious? Oh yeah, I'm coming here, no question. So you have to give a lot of credit to that fan base. Obviously, money is a big factor in that. But now you see it more and more, man. Guys are more comfortable. I think a big part of that is probably social media. No matter where you are, if you're dominating and playing well, you're going to be seen. That's just the way of the world now. So that's a good thing, though. I think it kind of spreads it out a little bit more, so that the blue bloods aren't as dominant. And I think that's a good thing for college basketball.
Well, one of the things that I think that I'm going to start laying some seeds here for our expat extras, because I do want to ask you a question related to transferring, but and how it would be in the COVID era. But I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to another thing that you said, where, was it maybe until your senior year of college that you actually started, I'm sure there's probably some aspiration that you always wanted to be a professional athlete. Like, it's pretty much a lot of people's goal. But then it also kind of starts becoming more tangible of like, okay, how do I actually do it? So if you could kind of like walk us through a little bit of that process for you, probably like it was your senior year when you're like, okay, I'm actually going to try to do this. If there was anybody that had the conversation with you, whether it was on a coaching staff or something that said, hey, look, you're good enough to go overseas, wherever that might be. And, after your senior season was over, kind of a little bit of process of like finding your agent, finding your way there to actually kind of bridge the gap to where you are now.
Yeah, you know what? I think it was after our junior year when I decided, okay, I'm going to stay here. And in my mind, I was like, well, if you're going to stay here, it's been 3 years. You haven't made an NCAA tournament yet. Let's get something done in this final year. And I remember me and my roommate, Devin Scott, we were 2-3 in the morning. We would go to the gym and get 500 shots up. It would be like, if we can't sleep, let's go work out, little things like that. And as we transitioned into my senior year, I think Alan Griffin, who was an assistant coach at the time at Dayton, played at Syracuse. I think he just kind of brought me to the side, like, hey, you're a good player. You can get things done. You do a little bit of everything on the court. You have an opportunity at the very least to play overseas. So, he kind of told me that, and my confidence started to arise. And like I said, we went to Elite Eight our senior year. And then after, this is kind of a not funny story, but kind of a interesting story. So after my senior year, Archie wanted me to sign with a specific agent. He wanted me to come into sign with a specific agent that, I don't know, the college basketball world, who knows what the implications were and how all that worked. But I ended up not signing with Archie's agent, with the agent that he suggested through the team, and signed with my own. And I always thought it was very funny that a guy who was one of 5 or 6 players to lead their team in every statistical category couldn't get an invite to Portsmouth. As a senior who went to the Elite Eight, that was always kind of odd to me. I'm like, anyways.
But
No,
you're
right to park on that.
I mean,
that's
at the time I'm a college kid, so I have no idea what the hell's going on, right?
Yeah. And we've had a number of people on the pod that have been at Portsmouth, so that's something that you'd think you would have gotten the invite to. Yeah,
I was the senior leader on a Elite Eight team that hadn't been there in, I don't know, 30 years. Usually those guys get an invite, and who knows? Some guys are able to. A guy from Michigan, Shane Whittington, went to Western Michigan University, and then he went to Portsmouth and had 8 threes in the game and got drafted. You know what I mean? It's like, it opens up some possibilities. But yeah, so I signed with my agent, and after that I had 6 or 7 NBA workouts. I did well in majority of them. I'll never forget the Thunder workout, Oklahoma City Thunder workout. I had a great workout. It was by far my best workout. I was dominating the other wings that I was in there with. And one of them was Josh Hustis, who ended up getting drafted by the Thunder. Now I went from not sure if I was going to play professionally to thinking Thunder had like a late second round pick. I was like, oh man, who knows? I'm not expecting it, but I'm like, you never know. Sure enough, that late second round pick, Josh Hustis. That's when I was like, oh my gosh. We had just beat them in the NCAA tournament to play for Stanford. We had just beat them in the NCAA tournament. And then I went to where I had a pretty solid game, 13 or 14, 12 or 11 points, something like that. And then I had an exceptional workout. I'll say my other workouts were, so-so, but the Thunder workout. So after that, I was kind of like, okay, well, now I know I can play overseas. Let's see if something happens with an NBA team. So I ended up going to the Celtics summer league team. And there's the Brad Stevens thing kind of came back around for me. I think played a part in it. But I just went there and didn't even get an opportunity. They were trying to win summer league. I think the assistants run summer league games. They were trying to win. And, they had guys like Kelly Olynyk that were already signed and they were still playing them. And I mean, which to each its own, but then I understood the political side of it all, right? Like we're paying these guys got to play, blase. And honestly, after that, for me, it was kind of just left a sour taste in my mouth. That's why I never really tried the G League or did anything like that. Cause I was just like, that small taste showed me the politics behind it. And that was enough for me.
When you have an opportunity to win a relatively pointless exhibition league, you have to do it. That's key.
That's what we always say here anyway.
I'm like, damn, we're trying to win summer league?
Okay. Like, raise the banner.
Yeah.
Championship mentality.
Yeah, exactly. But let's get into your when you started with your true pro career, which went to Belgium. That was your first stop, correct? Limburg United. What was that like for you playing in the Belgian league?
It was great, man. I mean, what an exceptional place to start my professional career. I had an American coach, which is probably the rarest thing you'll find overseas. I had an American manager who had played. My coach was Brian Lynch. He's married to, I don't know if you guys are familiar with tennis. He is married to Kim Clijsters.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. He played professionally in Belgium and was married to Kim Clijsters. And let me just say, Kim is an exceptional person. She is absolutely amazing. We're no longer in contact, but years after I was playing there, she would check in on me. And she was a great person, have a very good family. So that was the start of my professional career. So I had an easy transition. Those two guys knew what it was like coming to play overseas as an American. I had a great group of guys. Belgium is a very, very small but beautiful country. Mm-hmm. And this was, a lot of Americans have never even left their state, let alone their city, So for me, I was kind of like, I was out of my element. I wasn't really sure. I didn't know how to travel. I didn't know about trains, and that wasn't really my gig. So a part of me is a little sad that I wasn't as like explorative as I am now, because I would have went and seen everything. But Belgium was really nice, man. It was a good league. It was a good league for me to kind of get my feet wet.
It is kind of disappointing you weren't explorative, because one of my other, I guess you would call it a hobby, is beer, and Belgium is one of the best countries in the world for that kind of thing. Definitely a destination I want to get to just for that, among other things. There, Belgium's also like a gateway to the rest of Europe. So
exactly, and I didn't even understand where I was. Like everything's right there. My family came and we went down to Bruges. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mother. I love my mom because she had a whole itinerary planned. We went to see a lot of things when they came, but when I was by myself. Now, too, being from Michigan, we're craft beer crazies.
Mhm.
So,
Oh yeah, Kalamazoo,
my
home of
father's
Bells.
that's right. My dad is like adamant about it, right? That's his thing. So I was coming from Dayton where we were drinking Natty Light, so I had no idea what was going on.
Well, you can be forgiven because sometimes in college you have very little money, and craft beer,
Yeah.
even back
that's
then,
free?
was expensive. Yeah, exactly.
It's free.
The
I'll
best
take it,
beer,
yeah.
the best tasting beer is free, and the second best is cold. So from
Always.
Belgium, you ended up in Israel, another country that has a lot of beauty. Tell us about your time in Israel on the court and off the court.
Yeah, Israel was like Belgium, very easy, simple to maneuver. Everyone speaks English, and then it was like, this is Europe, buddy. This is what can happen over here. So I went to a team that was in the second division the year previously, and they had moved up to first division. And they were not ready to move up.
Ooh.
At the time, I had my previous agent, not my agent that I have now, and we weren't. I was a small fish in a big pond. CAA. We had a family friend connection that I had got with this guy, and he didn't really know me as a person. He didn't know what I'd be comfortable with, and he was just like handing out jobs, right? So this team, they weren't professional. We didn't get paid for probably the first 3 or 4 months I was there. And I was like, wait, what? I used to get my Belgium checks early. What is going on here? And when we did get paid, we were getting paid in cash.
Oh,
And I was like,
that's kind of sketchy.
that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
So I literally had thousands and thousands of shekels as their local currency there.
Mm-hmm.
I had no bank account there. They didn't set us up with any bank account. I just had this money in my apartment in a little cabinet. I still have videos on my phone of it just laid across my bed. Like, what is going on? I remember Google searching, how do you strap money to your stomach to get it across, to get it? I'm thinking I'm having to do this.
Yeah.
Thank God I ended up finding almost like a Western Union, but it was through the post there, and I was able to send it home. But it was like, this is crazy. But outside of basketball, Israel is amazing. My apartment was literally on the beach, warm every day. People were pretty friendly. The food was amazing. So I was a little sad I was only there for a short time, because I ended up leaving that team just because we weren't getting paid, and we were underachieving as a team because guys didn't really want to. Like, we're not getting paid. We're not going to try hard when you're not paying us. We're away from our family and friends. And I met a couple of guys on that team, though, that are still my friends to this day in that short time. So, you got to find the light in the dark. But as a country, Israel was great. I have a funny story from Israel, actually, when they have the sirens that go off when bombs are being, I don't know, when there's a threat level, a possibility of being hit. And my apartment was pretty small, so it's like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'm sleeping in my bed, and I'm like, oh no, this is the first time I've heard something like this. And I'm like, they get me. I'm not moving. I just turned over and went back to sleep. Every apartment has like a safe door. Like the bomb room, where you close the door and you're in there and you're secure. Thankfully, the bedroom was my room, so I was good anyway.
I did not know that about apartments there, actually.
I didn't either.
That's an interesting little point that you brought up.
And
so that's a common thing there?
After. That's a common thing there. Usually in houses, it's like a more secure area.
Yeah.
But the way that my apartment was set up, my room was the most secure room. So once I looked at my door, I realized my door was a lot thicker than any other door that I had in my apartment. So you close the door and kind of lock it, almost like a safe that you kind of twirl the lock. And I would have been okay in there, but I was like, man, that's just the first time you hear that. You have no idea. We actually went as a team to, I forget, I think they call it not the Iron Dome. I forget what it's called. the system that they use
The
to
Iron
shoot
Dome,
these.
yes, you're
The
correct.
Iron Dome, right?
Yes.
So we went to go check it out, and I was like, they're literally in there on a mouse, on a monitor, and they're showing us how they shoot the bombs out of the sky, and they're literally clicking. It's like a computer game. I'll never forget it. It's one of the best defense systems there is.
Mm-hmm.
The Iron Dome, right? It's like one of the, well, convenient at least. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, man, this is just for them to allow us to come there and see that in itself was pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. So from there, it does sound like you got a lot out of your time in Israel. You went to France. When you started out with the team, was this in Pro A or were they already in B? And because I know they dropped from A to B later.
Yeah,
on.
no, they were Pro A at the time.
Okay.
First league, yeah.
Okay.
I think after that year,
mm-hmm.
they went down. But I was it's probably the most hectic time of my life as far as my lowest point. I left Israel, and technically I got cut from the team. It wasn't like I was like, I'm leaving. I technically got cut. So I went home, and I was just at home, and I had girl issues going on at the time as well. So I was like at home, I wasn't doing anything, and I was like, man, what is going on? I don't know what I'm doing. Am I gonna play basketball again? And I actually moved back down to Dayton. So I'm hanging out at Dayton, and I'm like, what am I doing, man? I'll never forget it. Someone sent me a picture of a Snapchat. I was at a local bar on Dayton's campus, just chilling. I was on my phone, just trying to be around people because I'm a socialite. And someone said, and the caption said, "Why are you still here?"
It was probably Pyle. That's the guy who was suggested we interview. It was probably him. Chris Pyle, yep.
Yeah, probably was Chris. But I saw that and I was like, okay, snap out of it. So I contacted my agent, and I got back. I mean, I was in the gym, but I really got back in the gym, working out. And literally the first call that I got, I was like, I'm going. I got to get out of here. And that's when I went to France. And they weren't doing well, but it was not a bad team, man. I ended up playing in France again later on. And some of the guys that I played with on that team were veterans. I don't know what the situation was. Gershon Yabusele. I don't know if you guys know Gershon, played for the Celtics for 6-7 years now. And
I'm a Celtics fan. Yep.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, yeah. So Gersh was there. We had a good team, but just ended up just too late by the time I got there. Too hard to try and recreate chemistry, and so little games left. But France was nice. It was good to kind of get out of America and clear my mind and kind of get myself back on track.
Well, this is the question I think that we're going to be entering a point where we know we're going to park for a little bit because of the success that you had in Slovenia. But was Slovenia the part of your career that you really started exploring the country that you were in? I know you mentioned like with Belgium that, really didn't do too much except when your mom came and, had the itinerary, everything like that. And, you mentioned some of the stuff that you did in Israel, but when was it that you actually really started developing the idea that like, okay, wherever I am, I'm going to start exploring?
That was it, man. Because of my time in between Israel and France, I wasn't doing anything. And then after the end of that France year, I really didn't have any calls coming in. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then my agent ended up calling me. It was like, this is a new agent, my second agent, not the one that I have now, but my second agent is like, Ljubljana wants, with his team in Ljubljana wants to. I'm like, Slovenia? What is Slovenia, And it ended up changing everything for me, man. As for my career, personally, basketball-wise, I kind of took off from that point. And like you said, that was the start of, no matter where I am, I'm going to go around, figure out what's going on, explore, get uncomfortable, and, really try and get a taste of where I am. And now I'm the biggest proponent of, to overseas guys, when you get out, you got to immerse yourself in the culture, man. That changes everything for you. I tell people all the time now, I love basketball. It's been my whole life. It's changed my life. But the coolest thing for me has been able to travel the world and meet all different types of people and see all different types of cultures, because that's made me so much more well-rounded. I've been able to see and experience more than any average person usually would. So that's been great.
Absolutely. So let's talk about definitely the comfortable part of Slovenia for you. Here's a little bit. We're going to run through this really, really quickly. You're in Slovenia from 2016 to 2018. Here is a list of accomplishments. 2-time league MVP of the finals, 2-time league champ, Slovenian Super Cup winner in 2017, Slovenian Super Cup MVP in 2017, Slovenian Cup winner in 2017. So you did okay in Slovenia. Take us through the on-the-court aspects at Slovenia.
Yeah, it's so funny, man. I told you guys earlier, it's kind of always been about my confidence for me. And going into that year, I was kind of wavering because how the last year ended, I didn't really get any calls. It's kind of like a last thing. Okay, we're going to go to Slovenia. So to start that season, I started 0 for 23 from 3. 0 for 23. And this coach that I had, shout out to my guy, Gaspar Okorn. He called me in his office and was like, on pretty much any other team, you're probably cut, right? He called me in his office and he was like, we believe in you, man. You don't have to worry about anything. Keep shooting the ball and you're going to be fine. Like, there's no worry on our side, that whole spiel. And that really, really helped me. I ended up shooting, I think, 35% from 3 that year. Wow. I came back. I remember when that first one dropped, it was like, oh my gosh, thank you. After that, I was good. But he really, gave me the confidence and the comfort level to kind of play my game and do my thing. And once I got rolling and I was feeling good, it was just, I felt like I couldn't be stopped. And the environment of Ljubljana, of Slovenia, made it even better because everyone spoke English, unless they're older generation, basically Yugoslavians, ex-Yugoslavians. Besides that was speaking English. The city was small. I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan, so it's kind of similar. Obviously, Kalamazoo's a little bit bigger, but actually, I don't even know if it is. But America, the feeling of America, I would say is Kalamazoo bigger?
We'll look that up. I'll look that up in a second.
Okay, yeah.
I thought you were actually doing that, to be honest. So
yeah,
I'll look that up.
All right, Tony, which one are you doing? I'll do Kalamazoo.
Okay, I'll look up Ljubljana.
I'm interested. But it was easy to navigate. It was very simple to get around. Everything was close, and it was just a resurgence in my career.
So here we go. Kalamazoo, as of the 2010 census, I guess we don't have the 2021 up on Wikipedia, but it says it's 74,262.
That's not good. I think we're down.
Well, but here's the thing. Whenever you're talking about America, like sometimes the metropolitan statistical area, because we're so spread out, is 335,340 as of 2015. So it might be one of those things where the city proper doesn't have as much population wise, but maybe the metro area does.
The metro area of Ljubljana is 537,893. The city itself is almost just a hair under 300K. It's 295,000.
Oh,
so the city is dense, and it's also the metro area is dense as well. That European I'll talk about. That's the thing about Kalamazoo. When we talk about city versus metro area, the metro area is really spread out. Everybody's there. It's suburban. Ljubljana, other European cities, not like that at all. That isn't quite the case.
It's they're right on top of each other. That was when I first got I remember when I first got to Belgium, I was like, oh my goodness, the architecture and the differences. And, it's like, are you going to the center? I'm like, the center of what? It's downtown, the center of the city where no one can drive cars, It's awesome. I miss the architecture of Europe.
I mean, that's another thing that, again, I think it's, you kind of forget how young of a country this is relative to some of the places that you've played.
Right.
And so it's years and years of stuff getting built up. Whereas, I mean, there's other reasons too, but, we had all this land and just spread out basically, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
That could be a whole podcast series unto itself in terms of land use and all that other thing, but that's not what we're doing here today.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. I'm gonna
No.
leave if we're gonna do that.
I probably would too.
And
Uh,
the last thing about Slovenia, I want to point out, you mentioned you had girl problems in the last city that you came from. You seem to have figured those out in Slovenia. Is that right?
That's right, man. I met this peculiar little Slovenian woman that somehow got me to ask her to marry her. I don't know how she did it, but she's it was so cool. It's so cool because we come from completely different worlds, but like as people we're right here, which is I think unbelievable to me because just the fact that I mean she comes from Slovenia, like I've been in both places, so it's so crazy to me that two people kind of connect to each other. And we have the most romantic love story. We met in the club, which is obviously awesome. And no, we hit it off from the start and just got to know each other really well. She kind of put up with my nonsense for a little bit there. Professional basketball players can be real assholes sometimes, but she's the best, man. She whipped me into shape. She's a great woman. I'm supposed to be learning Slovenian currently. I've been getting a lot of shit for that, but I'm listen to me. When you see these words on paper, you'll understand why.
Well, my one of my colleagues in my day job is from Croatia, so I hear a lot of and see a lot of Serbo-Croatian and all that. So I kind of know how it goes. The Balkan languages. Slovenian is, I think, a bit different, but it has some similarities.
Yeah, it's pretty similar, but she's half Croatian too, so yeah, they speak a little bit of all of it, but I'll get it eventually.
Learning Slovenian while in Japan. That's what a life you live.
I literally have I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, and I got Spanish in here. I got Japanese in here because I'm trying to communicate with my teammates. A lot of them don't speak English. I got a little bit of French. I'm like, it's all mixed up in there.
Yeah. And one of the things, just really quickly before we move out of Slovenia, what were some of your favorite sites from Slovenia? And like you said, this was really kind of like where it started things for you in terms of how you viewed the rest of the second part of your career of basically immersing yourself. What were some of the things that off the court that you were going to run to do in Slovenia?
Slovenia for sure has some of the those pictures you see on Instagram of this place here. I'm sure you guys I know Tony's probably heard of Lake Bled. I don't know if you guys have. You should look it up. It's a little.
I've heard of it. I'm not incredibly familiar with it though.
It's nestled on a little island and around it is a big lake. But just that area, there's a castle there. I mean, I have hundreds and maybe probably thousands of pictures of the country in my phone, and just the views. The air is clean. There's a lot of nature. I don't want to say the world's largest, but I think it's Europe's largest natural cave.
Yeah, this is the segment of the
Postonia.
podcast that if you're listening on audio, we recommend that you get to something that you can look at pictures. And when we throw it up on video, more than likely we're probably going to put pictures up there. So I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, Postonia Caves. They have an animal there that only lives in that cave.
Oh wow!
So cool things like that. My mom is a big nature lover, and I really wasn't. I mean, I love nature, but not to where I'm going to go out and explore. And once I got to Slovenia, that kind of changed for me. And now my fiance, she goes on a hike every day. She's Slovenian, so that's normal for her, and she's kind of adapted me into that, and it's been great, man. Just seeing the natural beauty in things, and Slovenia was a great place for that.
So from Slovenia, you wind up going to Turkey. Another great place to play basketball. Typically, take us through what your stop in Turkey was like.
Turkey, good old Turkey. Turkey was cool, man. Basketball wise, it's one hell of a league. Now when I went to Turkey, this is when I signed with my current agent. And he got me to this team in Turkey, and I was coming off a good year in Slovenia, and I was extremely excited. And I got there, and I was easily playing the best basketball that I've been playing in my career. As a team, we were somewhat underachieving. We had a skill development coach at the time there for the younger guys, and he ended up moving up and being our head coach. And as far as developing guys, he was the best. I don't know if you guys know Seamus Hazer, who's currently playing for Fenerbahce, young Turkish kid. He was in this program. I know you know Alperen Şengün that plays for the Rockets. Yep. He was a fat 15-year-old kid there when I was there. This coach developed him. So for that, he was magnificent. But as far as first league Turkey, you got to have some type of system, right? Because these are good basketball players, good basketball teams, and we didn't really have that. So as we went along, the coach ended up switching. And this was my first experience in Europe in which it was like, oh, a coach can just decide that he doesn't want to play you. At the time when he came in, I was leading the team in every category: points, rebounds, field goal percentage, three-point percentage, whatever it was, I was leading it. And he got there and he was like, he didn't really tell me, but it was basically like, I don't really like your game. And they ended up bringing another American in. And I think the foreigner limit was 5. I think it still is 5 in Turkey. You can only have 5 foreigners on the roster at any given time. And I was sitting down. I was on the side, so I wasn't playing. And I'm like, and then we started winning. We beat a couple big teams. And, once that happens, creatures of habit, they don't want to change anything. And I was happy for my team because, I formed relationships with these guys, and I'm still very good friends with all of them. But for me, I was like, I'm playing well. Why do I have to suffer just because a new coach came? So I ended up making the decision to leave the team. Off the court, Turkey was a very, well, it's hard to say because at the time the team I was on, Banvit, was in Bandırma, which is like, I know for sure they have a smaller population than Kalamazoo. Not really anything going on there. So we didn't have much to do. One thing I do remember is that literally directly below my apartment, the bottom floor of my building, was a Little Squeezers. And so I would try to stay away from it, but it's hard when you're walking up to your apartment and Little Caesars is open 24 hours right below.
The pizzas are hot and ready. They are as advertised and nothing more.
After practice, tired, don't feel like cooking.
I'm sure I'm probably
about ready.
I'm pretty sure I'm about to offend a lot of people, especially if we have anybody listening in Italy. So at this point, just kind of turn down the volume. But I one of my first job ever was Domino's. I have a certain love for like good cheap pizza, and like honestly, I will go to bat for like things like Domino's and Little Caesars about how good they actually are for how cheap and inexpensive it is. So that's a little tangent, but you don't have to sell me on the idea of Little Caesars. Or
you sound American, sir.
I know, and that's why I said anybody that might be listening from Italy, turn this one down, sit this one out.
They'd have a heart attack. Mamma mia!
Yep.
Go ahead.
I have some friends in Italy, so I already know they'll be shaking in their boots.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that pizza
no,
and that level is that's just beyond reproach, but I just think that there is something to be. You got to give a little bit of credit for what it is. That's the caveat. Absolutely. For what it is.
I grew up on Little Caesars. Yep. My friend's dad, we'd be playing basketball in the backyard. He'd come over with like 6 boxes of Little Caesars. Now he just fed 20 kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if Little Caesars is listening, we need sponsorship on the pod. So yeah, expathoops.com.
Last time we said we would settle even
banners.
for we said something about McDonald's, and then we said we'd even settle for Arby's. So hey, Little Caesars, make our day.
Yeah, come on, Little Caesars. Don't
Yeah,
make
gotta
them go
come
to
through.
Arby's.
Come through. You played in Turkey twice. I do want to point this out because we'll get through that part. We haven't talked much about Turkey on the court. It is a quality basketball league. Some past guests that have played there said it's a very physical league. How can you speak to that in your 2 stints?
Absolutely, man. You know, I think top to bottom, I think even now, Turkey's probably top 3 leagues in Europe. And you know, that's why it was hard for me to leave that first year, because I was like, you know, this is, especially the first time I was there, it was right there with Spain as one of the best leagues. And I was playing well, I was killing the league, and I was like, man, let's go, you know. But very physical. I mean, from the guards, the domestic Turkish players, to the foreigners in the league, a lot of physicality. Now, being in different leagues, I see that the referees did a pretty decent job as well.
Referees always do better when you're at a distance.
I mean, hey, listen, I'm not saying it's an easy job, but sometimes, like, guys, come on, we gotta at least make it fair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you know, you can never discount the fact that in Europe, especially Turkey, especially Slovenia, Balkan, there is some money being bet on these games. So
I was just about to say something about we need to check some bank accounts, you know, that sort of thing. So that was going to be my joke.
I've gotten some pretty spicy Instagram messages after some games, especially when I was in Slovenia. The Balkans, I mean, between Turkey and the Balkans, I've played in some pretty. It can get a little dicey for sure.
Now I see why you were so. When we reached out to you, you were so nice. You're like, oh my gosh, a person that's not telling me to, you know, go F myself or anything like that.
Friendly people on social media.
Yeah.
One other stop I wanted to get into in terms of on the court was Germany. You want to talk about high level leagues? Germany is it. You went there after your first stint in Turkey. Tell us about that time.
I mean, you know, there's always an uncertainty when you leave a team, especially going into another team kind of middle of the season. And I've never been more happy to do so. SC Oliver Wurzburg was maybe one of my favorite half years of my career. When I talk about exceptional group of guys, I mean, they accepted me right away. Went there, we played well. Played with Mr. Mike Morrison over there. You know, Jordan Hall, Skylar Boland, and Aussie Xavier Cooks. We had a really good team. And Germany was great, man. I know we'll get to me being in Japan. I love Japan. I don't know if I want to leave Japan, but if I were to leave Japan, it would to go back to Germany. I don't know what it is. I think the one thing I noticed when I was there was the organizational level of Germany. Like, everything is put together. You get your money on time. Things are done properly. The teams are in order. So to that extent, it was very, very good. Tony, you mentioned beer earlier. I mean,
yeah,
best in the world.
You've been to Belgium. You've been to Germany. I mean, what else do you need? Honestly.
So it was a great place, man. Great country. Basketball was fun. Very good league. A league that fit me. I was able to. I'm often put at the 4 position in Europe, and now in Japan a lot too. But I got the opportunity to play the 3 there, which I absolutely loved, because at the 3 in Europe, I'm 6'7", 6'8" with the right shoes on. And me at the 3 I think is a matchup nightmare. And I really did well. I excelled at the position. It was a lot of fun. Our team did well. We almost won a championship. FIBA Europe Cup championship, a guy, one of our best scorers, ended up getting hurt, and that really hurt us. But it was a lot of fun, man. I nothing but love for S. Oliver Wurzburg. I wish the negotiations after the season would have worked out a little bit more in my favor, because I definitely wanted to go back. But nothing but love for that city, those fans, and everything that's associated with it.
So after Germany, you go back to France a second time. And not only is it the second time that you go back to France, it also happens to coincide with your COVID story. So take us through what things were like coming back to France, but also, you know, actually having played there before, you kind of knew what it was like and you were able to experience it, obviously to some extent during that season as well. But then when COVID breaks out, take us through that, because everybody at this point that's come on the podcast has got some level of a COVID story, whether it's they're just starting out. Basically, everybody's got one. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Coming back to France, you know, this team that I played on was in a suburb of Paris. So having been in some cities that were very small, it wasn't very hard to sell me on living in Paris. And this was the first year that my now fiance would be living with me. So the team was cool. We had a very, very good team. I was playing great basketball to start the year. For some reason, I don't know, I like to think that I'm a pretty personable guy and that I treat everyone with respect. But another situation where a coach just, I don't know what it was, but I remember starting the French league off. I was, scoring 16, 17 points in the first few games, and then it just was like benched for no reason. Not sure why. But the guys that I played with that year were another great group of guys, good guys, and we had a good team. And kind of started to slow, and then I think we ended up winning 11 out of 12 or something like that. And then next thing you know, here she comes, Mrs. COVID. And, you know, Paris was the first European city to really get dismantled. And I remember we went to the last trip we made was to the Arc de Triomphe. And we had heard rumblings about the there's a virus, but we're not wearing masks or anything. We don't know what's going on. It's kind of like, what is this? What is that? So we went on the subway, and now where life is, I'm thinking about being on that subway, and I'm like, oh God, no way. So we went there, and that was the last thing that we did. The day after that, they mandated a complete lockdown. And I don't really remember like specifically how it progressed, but I just know that we needed a sheet of paper. We had to print off a sheet of paper. We had to sign a piece of paper and designate where we were going. There's like, you could go to the grocery store, the hospital, and something else. And we were kind of in the suburbs, but downtown Paris, there were literally tanks had been mobilized. There was martial law. And people couldn't go anywhere. Like if you got caught out past, I think we had a curfew of 6 or 7. You got caught out past that time, it's like a 20,000 euro fine, and you would be taken to jail or something like. I mean, they were like strict. And we're 5 or 6 Americans in a foreign country. We're like, oh shit, we're staying in the house. I'm afraid. I don't know what's going on. I think at one point, me and my fiance she was taking walks. I was in the house for 7 days straight.
Oof.
And this is the tough part for me. This kind of coincides with my story. When everything hit, not one time did any staff member, coach, GM, anyone from the team contact us to let us know what was going on or to see if we were okay. we coordinated through one of my French teammates who was talking to them, but none of them reached out to us as Americans to make sure, at least not to me, to make sure that we were okay. And we were sticking around because the French league was like, okay, we're going to try and continue the season. Right. And at first, like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then as things got going and it started to ramp up more and you saw, okay, this is something very serious. It was like, you guys, there's no way you can continue the league this year. It's not going to happen. But we're getting no communication from our team. So we're sitting at home. We ended up staying there for a month and a half, almost 2 months, I think close to 2 months. Because our thought process was, God forbid we do leave and then we can't get back into the country because of COVID. That's a breach of contract. Now we lose all our money. Whereas the rule in France is, by law, they have to pay you your money. Now there ended up being some negotiations. There's a sub-clause in the contract that says because of, illnesses or whatever it may be, you get a lesser percentage, right? But you still get all of your money. So we were like, we're sticking around. We don't want to leave. And they I think part of me says that they wanted us to try and leave so that if it did happen, they could save them some money on the back end. But we ended up not leaving. And then finally it was just like, you know what? I got to get home. You know what it was? It was Trump went on and said he made an announcement like, all Americans, come home now. You have to come home. You might be locked out. And I'll never forget. I never get into politics. That's just one thing that I never do. But he should be blamed for that, because I remember the panic that we had when he said that. I was like, oh my, everyone got to go home. But we couldn't because we're trying to get our money. So I can't imagine the waves of COVID that he brought back to the country because everyone panicked, fairly panicked, And yeah, man, it was nuts. I can't even explain like the feeling of going down to the grocery store and things being gone, and just how it is. Even now it's less, but like someone would cough, you'd be in public and someone would cough and you'd be like looking at them like they're just gonna turn into a zombie. So it was just like the beginning of all of that, and everything was really weird, and it was tough, man. Being in a foreign country when it hit, it's like, we're checking US updates every day, like if we're going to be locked out of America. And idiots, you can always get back into your home country.
Yeah.
They can't, especially Americans, like they're going to let you back home. But the other side of that was me and my fiance ended up being split for 4 or 5 months because she went back to Slovenia and I went back to America. And then that's everything really shut down and we couldn't see each other. We didn't see each other until the following season when I went back to Turkey. So it was nuts, man. It was just being in Paris when it initially happened. It was like, oh, this is a real thing. This is going to be, and here we are, 2 years later.
Yep. Actually, we're coming up on almost 2 years, because I think everything kind of, at least in this country anyway, I think was mid-March of 2020, and we're recording this early February. So yeah, coming up on almost 2 years, and certainly concept of time has changed. So even when you're like, has it been 2.5? It's like, could it be 3? I don't know. It feels like it could be 4. It could be 5. Yeah. So it just is what it is.
My life already blends together anyway. Like my weekend is my days off. I don't really recognize days of the week anymore. So with COVID, it's made it even more strenuous in that aspect.
You're currently in Sendai. This is technically, I think the first time that you've been in Asia. And one of the things that you kind of did earlier on throughout the course of the episode was you were walking us through when you had a certain agent. So this is now your third agent, I believe. And you wound up in Japan. A lot of times with our overseas guests, it depends on what the agent relationships are and with the clubs and teams and everything like that. So how did you wind up getting to Japan? Because it's kind of I don't want to say an abrupt or change, but it's a change nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a transition for sure. You know, I think teams were contacting my agent to a certain degree, but my coach now coached a guy by the name of Dwayne. Oh, you guys know Dwayne Evans that played at St. Louis, who's been in Japan now for a while. He coached Dwayne last year, and he asked Dwayne what kind of a player that's kind of similar to you, and Dwayne gave him my name. So the coach contacted me, and we talked a little bit. I think the same Sendai had been talking to my agent as well, and you know, it's not easy to get into Japan. They don't once you're here, they like keeping the same guys here because especially if they know who you are as a person, they don't want to try and explore new players and potentially have issues or anything like that. So for me to be able to get in here in itself was pretty great. Personally, I think a part of it is we have a time capsule on our careers. We were talking earlier before we started that you're going to feel the age, and there's a point where I'm starting to feel it. I do a pretty good job. You know, I lift 3 times a week, whatever, but can't beat Father Time. So Europe's money is unfortunately slowly going down because of COVID. And this was a great opportunity. I mean, I'm not a guy to brag on my money, but this is the most that I've made in my career. You know, so that's another side of it for me that was like, okay, that's pretty interesting. I mean, hell, Japan, who wouldn't want to go see Japan? You know what I'm saying? I said earlier that a big part of everything for me has been immersing myself in the culture and finding new places and seeing new people. So to have this opportunity, I just thought it was really cool. And it ended up working out. I ended up getting here. The process to get here was, I was living in Chicago this summer. I had to go to the Japan consulate and do interviews. And I remember I came over here with a stack of paper about this big to give to the border to the customs control when I got here. They ended up using 3 or 4 papers, but
but you were prepared though.
I was over prepared because they stressed it to us that it can get dicey sometimes. I mean, we had about 15 different checkpoints once we got here that we had to go to, COVID testing and meeting with people, filling out certain things. We had to download apps, put on our phone, because when you first arrive, I had to quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks. And through this app, they would call you and you would have to show your face. And if you weren't in your room, then I don't know what would happen. You go to Japanese jail, maybe. I'm not sure.
Probably a problem of some sort.
A problem to some degree. So they were very strict about it. And it was a process, but it's been great, man.
So this is kind of the interesting part to me is I think that you are the first person we've ever had on. We're getting close to our 50th episode. First person we've ever actually had on that has been in Japan at the time. We've had some people that have, you know, played there and everything like that. And one of the things that's kind of interesting about Asia is outside of probably China, maybe because they're making a real big commitment to it and everything. But like South Korea, Japan, they pay super duper well. You know, you're going to get to visit a country that's absolutely unique culturally and everything like that. Great stuff to see. Like you said, why would you not want to go to these countries? But the interesting thing is the style of play and, you know, kind of being a little bit closed off it's going to be not as high level as some of the other countries typically. Have you been finding that that's the case, but at the same time, it's obviously a trade-off that you're more than okay with living with?
Yeah, absolutely. That's was the main thing for me. You know, I was so used to in Europe it being more of a team aspect. I mean, it still is a team. I think I'm on a specific team here where it is still a team aspect, but a lot of it falls on the foreigners. It's me and 2 other guys. And I don't know, maybe once or twice in my career have I been like consistently double teamed to where like they're coming to get the ball out of my hands. So that it presents its own challenges in a way that are different than Europe. But overall level of play, of course, Europe is definitely by far better. The domestic guys, there's some good Japanese players, absolutely. But just like size wise. You know, they're just naturally smaller people. But it's been, I think the main thing that I've learned is being precise in my moves and my decision making. You know, Europe, you can kind of move the ball around, and you know, maybe at the end of the clock you get a high ball screen, and you know, you're in certain positions. It's not like that in Japan. They're more focused on you, and when you do something, you have to understand. Like, I'll just give you an example. Say, for example, I set a ball screen, I get a switch, and there's a small guard on me. Once I get the ball, I probably have 1 or 2 dribbles before someone's coming to get me. That doesn't happen to me in Europe. You usually get to play one-on-one in Europe, you know, when guys are usually my size and so on and so forth. So that aspect has been interesting to get used to, but it's fun, man. There's I would say there's less defense here for sure. So it's kind of fun to kind of get loose and, you know, get some stuff off that you wouldn't usually get off in Europe.
That's a little interesting. The defense, you know, you're saying less defense. I would have actually kind of thought, if I would have had to have guessed, there would have been the attention to detail on that.
Yeah, I mean, attention to detail. Actually, my team, we're a defensive team. Like, a lot of our guys are defensive driven. But listen, attention to detail is, this place is number one. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before, and everything that they do. And I think at first it's kind of like, okay, you're overdoing it. And then as I've gone along and I've seen that it's part of their culture, like, damn, that I got to respect you. This is unbelievable. I mean, going to the convenience store, you know, America, they're going to throw your shit in the bag and you're going to get it and you're going to go. They're not going to. Here, they are like placing it accordingly, setting things up. I'm like, this place is unbelievable. I have Japanese teammates. First and foremost, every day after practice, they're going to stay and get extra work. It's just mandatory. They don't even think twice about it. And if they set a goal, like say make however many shots, they will not leave the gym until that goal is met.
Man.
Coaches like, we'll be running 5-on-0. Like, we had close contact with COVID this last week. No one had COVID, but we had close contact, and they're very strict about it. So we basically had a week off. So we're kind of getting back to the flow of things this week, and we haven't done any plays or anything. And we were running over plays yesterday, and coach had us keep going through it because he wanted it to be right on point. You know what I mean? So,
sorry, one of the things that I think you kind of brought up earlier was in the pod where you're talking about, like, you know, you have certain words that are rambling around in your head, you know, a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of French, and everything. You're saying that so few of your teammates now speak you know, anything other than Japanese. And with the coaching staff, we've asked this question before of other people, mostly in Europe, where you go to another place and, like, you know, there's pointing, or I can figure out when they're, you know, by the level that they're yelling at me, how happy they are with me, or how just, you know, how much I'm screwing up. But with you in particular, it sounds like this is almost posing a different challenge to you this time around. What's this specific spot like that's been different from some of the other ones where English wasn't necessarily like the first language?
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say is our coach is half American, half Japanese. So he speaks English, which is very great, because that's probably most important, that the coach is able to speak English. But you asked challenges outside of the language barrier. Japan, I think on court, or can it be off court?
Either.
Yeah, I think off court, it's kind of, I mean, it kind of is the language barrier, but like just maneuvering throughout the city, as far as going to like places to eat or grocery store, like ordering things or asking for something extra, that part of it is pretty difficult. But outside of language barrier, you know what? I don't really have many here. This is as far as convenience goes, and them, even though we don't speak the same language, them helping you with things, it's pretty good, man. They go above and beyond to kind of make the transition easier. It's a safe country. There's no violence. You know, you don't really ever fear for your life or anything like that. So I'm trying to think of something though outside of the language. I don't think there's anything. Maybe I'm just, because of my experience, my tough experiences in Europe, I'm in the honeymoon phase still.
Maybe.
Well, and you could be absolutely quite comfortable where you are too. I mean, that's one of the things that,
Yeah.
you know, we were saying off the top. It's a destination that you definitely wanted to get to, and you know,
Yeah, it's been good, man.
if
It's
you
been
leave for
good.
another country, it would be certain ones that you have in mind. One thing I kind of wanted to address it with you is the, you know, we talked about, you know, that they pay well and everything like that, but what are the perks and the amenities, like, you know, the travel, things like that, that again differentiate itself from Europe?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of the time, most of the teams I've been on in Europe, we're traveling by bus. Here, the beautiful thing about Japan, one of my favorite things about Japan is the Shinkansen, the trains. I mean, I can get to Tokyo in an hour and 15 minutes. And when we travel to games, we usually travel by train. And it's just much more comfortable. You have your own space. You know, you can set your iPad up or do whatever you want to do on the train. That's been really great. Just getting around Sendai, the subway is super convenient. I have a station right below me. It's clean.
Yeah, there are no public trash cans anywhere, are there?
Yo, the first time I got here, I couldn't believe it. Like the first month, 2 months, I would like finish eating something and be looking around. Where are the trash cans? But there's no trash anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. It's unbelievable.
Pack in, pack out, just like going into the woods.
Seriously, the only place you can, the thing that I have a guy that I play with now, he's been here, I think 9 years. So he knows everything about it. He said, you got to throw your trash away in the convenience stores. That's the only place that they have, you know, consistent trash cans.
Oh, wow.
You know, convenience stores to us, we think at home, like you would never buy food from a convenience store, right? But here is like, you can go grocery shopping at a convenience store. Here, it's amazing. It's high quality food. Everything's fresh, which is really nice because sometimes you don't want to go all the way to the grocery store. You know what I mean? I think team-wise, like athlete-wise as players, they do a really good job of taking care of us. I can think of countless instances in Europe in which my body was killing me and hurting, and we don't really care, big fella. You're gonna have to keep practicing. You know, we're paying you. I don't want to say slave because slave is a very strong word, but you're basically like, it doesn't matter. You're here, we're paying you, you're gonna have to practice. In Japan, if you're not feeling up to par, you just gotta let them know, and it's okay. You know, it's okay. We're not trying to kill you. There's communication between coach and us. There's correlation. It's great in that aspect. Our PR team is absolutely amazing. I'm trying to see if I have something close that I can. Oh, hold on, I got something. Wait. I mean, every game. I mean, Japan's already very quirky, but does that look like someone you guys might know? I mean, they have the gap and everything. Like it's, you know what I mean? It's small stuff like that. And for my family and friends and, you know, to bring stuff like that back home, that's cool. We have, at our games, we have special lunch packages that you can buy from each player. So we get to create what we want people to eat at the games and things like
Wow.
that. You know, that's
That's pretty
really
cool.
I think our PR team's better than a lot of teams in Japan, but they're unbelievable, man. I mean, it's the ultimate degree. And we have game sponsors. So say if you lead the team in dunks, they announce the MVP of each game, lead the team in assists and 3-pointers made. So oftentimes I lead the team in assists. And when you get assists, you get free sushi.
Ooh.
So I think it's close to $100 in free sushi from all the assist things that I've won. And you just take it to a place that sponsors our team and you give them, they're like coupons, and you take and you get free sushi. I'm like, Europe would never. They would never. So I'm sometimes referred to as sushi boy at practice. Yes,
not a bad
I am
nickname.
sushi boy. Yeah, that's me. I love it.
Devin, thanks so much for joining us on the pod today. A reminder to our listeners that we have a new home, expathoops.com. You can find all of our content there and subscribe to our podcast channels and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which has our unique off the pod content you can't find anywhere else. Devin, good luck to you on the rest of your season in Japan.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. It was honored to be on here. I had a great time talking to both of you, even though you're George Mason alums. Once you graduate, it's all love in the A10.
Exactly. And
sure.
actually, that's one of the things we'll get into in the extras.
Let's go.